I see something long absent in the sunken faces of passers-by. A glimmer of hope.
And welcome back to more Darkest Dungeon. This is episode 31, week 91, getting underway. Alright, so first things first, Devatron. Kind of a scary town event. Brigand incursion? To arms, a brigand raiding party is descending upon the hamlet with explosive fury and murderous intent. Plot quest wolves at the door. Okay, so the brigand incursion town event is quasi-random. Basically, there's a random chance that it'll spawn, but that chance increases as the game goes on, so eventually it will spawn. So I'm going to say a lot more about the brigand incursion, but real quick, notice we're upgrading the cartographer's camp in the districts interface. And what this does is it increases the benefit from torchlight. It's actually pretty significant. At all levels of torchlight, you gain plus 50% loot chance, plus 1% chance to crit, plus 2.5% scouting chance, plus 5% chance that monsters are surprised, and a reduction by 5% that your party is surprised. Now, the other thing that we have to point out about the districts interface that you may have noticed is that there were a couple of other buildings that I had already built since the last episode, namely the House of the Yellow Hand and the Outsider's Bonfire. So while it is true that in the interim since the last episode, we have acquired a good amount of gold and heirlooms and spent them on district upgrades, at the same time, what's really going on as to why it's all of a sudden such a sudden jump is that I've moved ahead a little bit with this episode with regard to the order in which I recorded the various episodes. In other words, this one wasn't supposed to happen until, I don't know, 2 or 3 other ones in between. You see what I mean? And I really hated to do that. I truly wanted to show you things in the order that I recorded them, not just from a purist point of view, but, you know, to avoid precisely situations like this where all of a sudden you're seeing us with all these buildings in week 91, and then in the next episode it's week 82 and we don't have those buildings that you just saw us purchase. You know what I mean? It really disrupts the continuity and kind of calls into question a little bit the integrity of, you know, a video game playthrough. So why then did I do this, right? Well, first of all, there are only 2 out-of-order episodes that I can recall, this one and one other. So in that regard, it's very minor, and, you know, I might have just not even said anything and nobody would have noticed. But more important, what it does, I think, is it promotes a stronger continuity in the overall story arc, especially with regard to the individual dungeons, and especially considering how I'm going to present them. You know, I keep talking about, you know, once I get to the champion level of the dungeons, I'm going to do them in order, and I'm going to kind of give you the full sequence of Ancestor's memoir voiceovers so you can, you know, digest the entire story for each dungeon and the DLC zones, right? So I wanted to get this ancillary stuff out of the way first, just like with the Shieldbreaker backstory journal entries. I wanted to get those out of the way, and then any random encounters like this, just get that out of the way, and then we could move on and go, you know, straight through, get the DLCs completely done, then, you know, the 4 main dungeons, and then on to the darkest dungeon. So I think by doing it this way, it'll just, you know, be a much nicer viewing experience, and it'll allow you to have a fuller and more immediate comprehension of the various storylines and the overall story arc in general. All right, so with all that preamble out of the way, we can finally talk about the brigand incursion. A couple things. You can skip it, just go do another quest for this week in some other dungeon. But the thing is, if you do that, then Vwulf is how everybody says his name, the leader of the bandits. He will destroy 3 of your building upgrades, okay? And if it happens late in the game like this and you've already, upgraded most of your buildings all the way, he's going to be destroying those final upgrades, which were really expensive. Lots of heirlooms, lots of gold. So you can skip it, but it's not advisable to do so. Second, if you go in and fail the quest, you don't lose the upgrades. But obviously failing the quest is going to be bad. This is considered a darkest dungeon level of quest. In other words, not veteran or champion, but the darkest dungeon, highest level of difficulty. And what that means is if you abandon it, you will randomly lose one of your heroes that was in the party. So you definitely don't want to go in and fail this or abandon it. But that said, it's really not too hard. It depends on when it shows up. If it shows up early and you're unlucky, it can be really hard if you don't have the right kind of party. But as you'll see, it's not too bad for us. All right, so I think we're just about ready. Shieldbreaker, Man-at-Arms, Jester, and Vestal. Here we go. All right, so here we go. The first thing you're going to notice is this really loud, obnoxious soundtrack and sound effects. Second, the map is one of those maps that only reveals itself one hallway at a time.
Eradicated. In Radiance, may we find victory. Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles. Decimated. Press this advantage. Give them no quarter. Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
Okay, so first fight down, some really nice stuff there. And you probably couldn't tell because we handled the fight so well, but these versions of the bandit enemies are the really hard versions of the bandits. They hit hard, they crit a lot, they cause a lot of stress damage, etc., etc.
Glittering gold, trinkets and baubles, paid for in blood.
So the other tricky thing about stress management here is that this is a short dungeon, and as such there is no camping. You may have noticed we weren't provided with a camping log, right? So we're not going to be able to reduce stress through resting, and we're also not going to be able to have nice, camping buffs before we face what is otherwise a pretty tough boss.
How quickly the tide turns. Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all. Dazed, reeling, about to break. The slow death, unforeseen, unforgiving. Unnerved, unbalanced. Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive. Such a terrible assault cannot be left unanswered. A trifling victory, but a victory nonetheless.
All right, so there you can see a more typical result. Tough enemies, lots of stress, lots of debuffs. That one wolf infected 2 heroes with rabies, which is not what you want before a boss fight, etc.
The light, the promise of safety. Hacks laden with loot are often low on supplies. A devastating blow. Destroyed. fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms.
Alright, so a much better fight there. We are better equipped to take down humans. And there's a big human right through this next door, Devatron. Here we go!
As the light gains purchase, spirits are lifted, and purpose is made clear.
A brilliant confluence of skill and purpose.
A singular strike. Great is the weapon that cuts on its own. Be wary. Triumphant pride precipitates a dizzying fall.
Oh, all right. Big time, Devatron. Vwulf is down. Yeah, a couple things you can see work really well. Obviously, having a man-at-arms to guard whoever he puts his bomb on is really going to help. And then in conjunction with that, because the man-at-arms will be the one taking the damage, equipping him with the mirror shield, which will reflect a portion of the damage he takes back, will help whittle down Vwulf.
The way is lit. The path is clear. We require only the strength to follow it. Wealth beyond measure, awarded to the brave and the foolhardy alike.
Okay, so obviously we've stayed around to explore this place a little bit, try to get some extra loot, even snuff the torch out there to increase that chance further. All the rooms in here have a chance to drop Ancestors trinkets. You see we've gotten 2 so far. The tricky part is you need a lot of shovels to get through all the debris in here, and there just aren't enough for sale on the provisioner to get to them all.
The match is struck. A blazing star is born. Prodigious size alone does not dissuade the sharpened blade. Obliterated.
Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle.
The ground quakes. Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
Impressive haul, if you value such things.
All right, Devitron, we're going to get on out of here. No more shovels to cut through the debris with. You could just do it with your hands and take stress damage and health damage. But remember, there might be more, room battles and hallway fights, so it would make it that much harder. We got a lot of heirlooms, decent gold, a nice trophy, and we did get a couple ancestors' trinkets in the chests we did manage to find, so no need to be greedy. Armor Tinker replacing Warrior of Light. Whew. That's about as bad as it gets, especially considering that hero already has fully upgraded armor. But hey, what can you do? Darkest Dungeon. Wolves at the door, Devitron. We'll see you in the next episode.